Well, of course, you heard Nestor breaking down some of the major points of that. Let's talk to Nestor himself, who is dutifully stationed down at the Guam Congress building. Nestor, half a day?
Half a day, Jason. Yeah, I did manage to speak with GPA's Assistant General Manager for Administration, Tritsy Limpiaco, and we talked a little bit about the GPA credit. She said, of course, they'll need to know what the details are, but they would be able to implement it fairly quickly. Also tried to reach out to GSWA. The general manager is in a meeting for most of the day, and trying to get details on the free trash pickup, how that's going to work, how it's going to be paid, what kind of funds or where they're going to come from. Because as I understand it, GSWA also has a bond issue, and so there might be some implications because under the bond they would have to have certain revenue considerations or guarantees.
Sure. So
I'm trying to get more details on that. Also, let's see, got the copy of the governor's speech right here. Child care, they increased the income threshold for working families by 300%, which means a lot more people will qualify for the $675 per child care costs that would be free. Let's see, jobs, I think on July 1st, the governor's going to have a island-wide job fair, which is supposedly the largest in about 15 years.
Yep, and we actually have Department of Labor coming in our next segment. Dave Delasol and Janela Guerrero are going to talk about that very event.
Yeah, so 500 private sector jobs. Let's see, she talked about Hotel Wharf, $15 million that was used to upgrade the Hotel Wharf, which they believe will help lead to the birth of Guam's cruise ship industry. This is an issue that has come up before. There have been problems, though, related to this, how viable a cruise ship industry for Guam would be. Would people actually fly here to get on a boat to go to different Micronesian islands? That would be where the cruises would take place. That was a discussion previously, but those Micronesian islands would have to upgrade their ports in Pohnpei, Chuuk, Yap, wherever so it would take a lot of coordination, a lot of investment, not just by Guam, but by the other the FAS governments. Yeah. So there's a lot involved in that. So just because Hotel Wharf has been completed doesn't necessarily translate directly into a cruise ship industry. But of course, it provides at least a start for it, a way that cruise ships can come into Guam's port. But as far as establishing a cruise ship industry, there's a lot more to that.
She touched on infrastructure, you know, now that you mentioned it, Nestor, like in a variety of ways and everything, of course, you know, with the wharf and the implications for tourism was, I know, something that she spent a considerable amount of time in the hour-long speech. And I know when I was watching, because we were all watching the stream, we were all riveted to like our screens, our phones, and tablets, what have you. That particular section of her speech had a very, very positive response.
Yeah, she's very bullish on tourism. She said last night that you know, the number of flights are picking up. United announced yesterday, I believe, that it's increasing its Nagoya and relaunching its Nagoya and Fukuoka and increasing the Narita flights. So that's of course great news, because that's always been the whole catalyst for tourism, is the number of airlines, he said, are coming into Guam, particularly from places like Japan and Korea. So that's a good sign. And she's resting a lot of her confidence on former Governor Carl Gutierrez, who is now the president and CEO of GVB. So a lot will be resting on his shoulders to get the tourism industry going. But by all accounts, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, there are increases over last year, but last year was a very low year. So, you know, it's still, I think, on pace for about another year or two before we reach pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, Carl's been busy lately. They had their budget hearings last week, and then just a couple of days prior to that, of course, they had the trade familiarization event over at the Hyatt, which you were at as well.
Right, and of course, there's also the proposal for a smart park.
The smart park, yeah.
At Ipao, the Governor Joseph Flores Beach Park. So
yeah, can I ask again, because Nestor, you know, like so many of us were watching it, and you know, to hear the governor say those words and, you know, to go through the various touch points of the speech was one thing, but you were actually in the room, right? What was the emotion, and could you actually sense something palpable from the way people were reacting to what she was saying, and, you know, the manner in which she delivered it?
Well, I think that well, most of the crowd in the room was, of course, her cabinet officials. So they were very enthusiastic. Yeah, and so yeah, it went over well with them, obviously. And I think we had a very large audience. People were waiting to hear the speech, to hear what the governor has to say. She made some announcements in the beginning about aid to the community, and she acknowledged that the cost of living and financially people are struggling, and so I think that's what people wanted to hear. What kind of further assistance can you provide? And she mentioned near the top of her speech the $500 in GPA reimbursement or credit, and also the third iteration of the Programa Salapi.
Yeah, there were a lot of numbers that she was throwing out last night that I know a lot of people were even in the comments. People were very impressed with that. The $100 credit, the $500, the $675, like you said, for childcare. She quantified like a lot of things last night.
Yeah, another interesting topic that we haven't been able to reach out yet to the health insurance industry, but she mentioned universal health care to start off with GovCom employees. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but that's an interesting concept. It's the one that's been batted around internationally and nationally too. And we'll see where that goes. But that's interesting. It's a big issue, right? And healthcare is very high on the list of what people need. In fact, some people go back to work just so that they can get health care.
Exactly.
Particularly in government service. So that will be interesting, and we've reached out to some of the healthcare providers to see what their comments are, what their thoughts on how that will all work.
Now, of course, you interviewed the minority leader, Senator Duenas. You had that in the piece you filed. Have you talked to anybody since then, between last night? Because we know you here at the office. You're always on the phone. You're always getting feedback and working on leads and everything. Has anyone else reached out to you, or have you reached out to anybody like bidirectionally and everything to try and get like a sense of how they feel about the speech?
From politically, no. The only one I talked to was last night, Senator Duenas. But I think Senator Moylan put out a release also. Raising similar issues about how are we, basically it's going to come down to, because she kicked the ball back to the legislature, particularly like for the GPA situation, where she's asking, send me a bill that would authorize this and I'll sign it right away. And Senator Duenas' point was, we got to check the money, because she said it's got to come out of general fund revenues and not federal ARP money. So at the last consolidated revenue and expenditure report had GovGuam's general fund revenues at about $85 million. They didn't like to use the word surplus, but revenues in excess of projections was about $85 million. But Duenas was saying that there are already other obligations, such as the teachers' pay and the law enforcement pay, that they have to take into consideration. And they're going into the budget discussions in August, because they have to provide a finalized budget to the governor for her signature at the end of August. So I think Senator San Agustin, who is the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, is quickly trying to wrap up all of those budget hearings by the end of next month.
And of course, it's an election year, so to see how everybody does their various responsibilities and how this all carries out, it's going to be very, very strategic and also very entertaining for those of us who enjoy Guam politics.
Yeah, it's all about the money, as it always comes down to. It seems like, great ideas. Even Senator Duenas was saying a lot of great ideas, but can we afford them? That's the bottom line.
All right, everybody, that's Nestor Licanto. Brilliant job last night, by the way, Ness.
Well, thanks, Jason.
Well done. All right, so please stay tuned, everybody, because when the hotspot continues right here from our Harmon Studios, we are going to talk to our friends from the Department of Labor, and they want to get you involved in a job fair that's coming up very, very soon. So polish off those resumes, get your LinkedIn profiles ready, because we want to connect you with a dream job when we come back.